Hey, this is Tom Glavine, and you're listening to Out of Left Field on The Grueling Truth.
Hey guys, welcome back to Out of Left Field. Just me today. Chris is going to be off for this show. And man, are we down to the last couple of days really left in the 2019 Major League Baseball regular season. The coaching carousel, the hot seats are turned full-blown. We're on the 10. The burner is hot, and we already have our first victim of the tail end of this season. That is Padres, well, at least former manager, Andy Green. Now, that officially comes down that he was relieved of his duties today, September 21st, right around noon or 1 o'clock. Kind of works out well for him as college football gets in full swing. He gets released. Rod Barajas, the former catcher, will finish out the season as the interim manager for the Padres. And this is one of those things that they were really hoping Andy Green was going to turn the tide for the San Diego Padres. And, of course, we saw them begin to make some moves. They had guys like Will Myers and a few pieces in the forefront in the big leagues. They were hoping they could at least get them a little bit of traction, and it never really seemed to work. Of course, they make the move for Eric Hosmer. That didn't do anything. Then they bring over Manny Machado. Still had a pretty decent season, at least by Padre standards, but not at all, of course, what they were hoping for. Not going to end up cracking the 500 mark, and it was just one of those things where you began to think that maybe he was just a bit over his head. And that seems to be the same thing that the front office and ownership thought, as right now they do still sit just a couple of games above the Rockies, but at 69 and 85, not even close to sniffing a wild card or a playoff. And if we take a look back over the last couple of years, we see that overall record-wise, we've talked about it in the past, that you're going to pretty much win a third of your games, you're going to lose a third of your games, and then the last third is kind of up for grabs. They finished last year at 66 and 96. Now, it's at least a somewhat of an improvement by a couple of games, and they still have probably 7 or 8 games left to go. 71 and 91 just 2 years ago in 2017. The problem there is if you start looking at these numbers and the way they finished all the way back to 68 and 94 in 2016, you're making splashes, you're bringing in big names, but then at the end of it, you're really just looking at your guys being in the exact same spot. So, as they have played 154 games, which leaves them with 8 games left to play just about, they're going to finish the season the exact same way that they have in the last 3 years. And that, I think, at the end of the day, is why you see Andy Green being let go. Now, the GM for the Padres and the rest of the front office and management did come out and say, quote, "I want to thank Andy for his tireless work and dedication to the Padres over the last 4 seasons. This was an incredibly difficult decision, but one we felt was necessary at this time to take our organization to the next level and expedite the process of bringing a championship to San Diego. Our search for a new manager will begin immediately." And that's one of those moments where the question is, that AJ Preller, the GM, says an immediate search, but now who becomes the guys that you're interested in? Because the names that you would think of, you have to think that this organization, with the moves that they have made, with the expectations they have set for themselves by bringing in Machado and bringing in Hosmer and having such a deep farm system, this has to be a win now, if you will, mentality. And granted, none of us think they're going to be a legitimate World Series contender in the next 2 or 3 years, but you have the talent, and you do have enough of these guys locked up for the next 6 to 7 years that by 2023 to 2025, you should be seeing these guys, this team, as a legitimate contender. So at least right now, the word could be, and this is from Kevin Acee of the San Diego Union Tribune, they have formed a list of candidates to include Bruce Bochy, who, last time I checked, is still a skipper of the San Francisco Giants, and he did just win his 2,000th career game, the 11th skipper in history to do so. The other 10, yeah, they're in Cooperstown, so that's a good thing for Bruce Bochy. Mike Scioscia, who's taken the year away from baseball after giving up the reins of the Angels to Brad Ausmus. Moises Alou, of course, his dad, Felipe, the former manager of the Expos, of the Giants as well, took the Giants. He was a skipper of the Giants, but did not take them to the World Series. That was right after him, Dusty Baker. Ron Washington, the current third base coach for the Atlanta Braves and former skipper of the Texas Rangers and their back-to-back World Series appearances. And Mark Loretta. Now, Loretta, a newer name, former player, not one that we have heard in a lot of managerial considerations, at least as of recent. And that really, to me, is going to be the big question here. You're not going to bring in a guy, I don't think at this point, like a Sandy Alomar Jr. I'm not really even sure if Mark Loretta makes sense at the moment. Yeah, he's been removed from baseball for just a little bit, but you do kind of want someone with a little bit of experience, I think. I mean, granted, sure, we have seen the Alex Coras and the A.J. Hinches, and even, of course, the Aaron Boones right now, who have come in as really first-year managers, or a manager that we haven't seen in the bigs for a while, and have shown themselves to really grasp the concept of the new idea of baseball, very numbers-based. As Mark Loretta retired at 09, so he has been removed from the game going on 11 seasons. But at the end of this, you know, I always liked, I think, when you go away from a younger manager like an Andy Green, I think it's a cycle. And I do think that while Moises Alou has been very big in some of the Dominican and the Venezuelan leagues, and general managing some of the teams down there, managing the teams and that kind of thing, that could certainly be an interesting hire for the Padres. Moises Alou has expressed interest in the past of wanting to be a big league manager. But to me, of this list, and Bruce Bochy, Mike Scioscia, Moises Alou, Mark Loretta, and Ron Washington to me is the one I would be shooting for. Very much, I think, a player's manager. Yes, he had some personal demons that he dealt with back in the former part of the 20-teens. Has seeming to have gotten through them. Did a great job with that Rangers ball club, and has been, I think, a very beloved piece of the Atlanta Braves system. I would like to see him get back into it. You see how energetic he is. I still, to this day, can remember, I can still see him as the manager, just waving that arm like a third base coach, waving guys around, getting so excited when things happen. He's a fiery guy, a guy who protects his players, but I do believe that he would be a very good candidate and a good fit for a relatively young San Diego Padres team when you are anchored by an Eric Hosmer and a Manny Machado. That could be the kicker. Bringing in a guy like a Mike Scioscia, like a Bruce Bochy, they're not going to stand for that crap that Machado pulls. They're not going to allow him to be the dirty guy, to not put the effort forth. All the junk that comes along with Machado's just fantastic abilities as a straight ball player, you're going to have to find someone who can balance and take the give and take just a little bit, who can try and manage Machado, but at the end of the day understand that he's going to have a little bit more freedom than you're going to want to give to him because of how much he's being paid. And you do still have guys like Fernando Tatis Jr., Chris Paddock. So, I mean, this is one of those when you have Mackenzie Gore, who is baseball's top pitching prospect, Taylor Trammell, a couple of the guys in that minor league system for the Padres. You need someone who can really go ahead and build this team. And we know what Bruce Bochy can do with pitching. But out of this list, I think Ron Washington would make the best fit, at least off of the names that we have seen thus far. They have plenty of time, 4 months, 5 months until spring training to figure out who they want to go. So we'll see what A.J. Preller and the Padres decide to do. On the other side of the country, on the other side of the coin, conversely, the whole 9 yards, the Marlins extend Don Mattingly, which I'm not sure if they just hate him so much that they want to go ahead and keep him in purgatory just a bit longer. But right now, the Marlins are the third worst team in Major League Baseball, behind only the Detroit Tigers and the Baltimore Orioles, which officially makes the Marlins the worst team in Major League Baseball because the Orioles and the Tigers never once looked like a team the entire freaking year. I am really surprised. Number one, I'm surprised that Mattingly wants to stay in this bleep show. I mean, I just don't get it. And I understand that the Marlins are trying to grow, but they are not at the same point as to where the Padres are, where really in the foreseeable future, it appears as though the tunnel is going to open, the curtains are going to fly back, we're going to have the sunshine, you're going to hear the choir of angels behind you, and they're going to have some success. Who in the hell thinks that the Marlins are going to have success in the next couple of years? I don't. So it's a 2-year deal, an option included. It just absolutely blows me away. And it makes me wonder, is this a Derek Jeter, Don Mattingly, New York Yankees great, so I want to keep you around sort of thing? Is Mattingly a placeholder just for now? It is such an odd move for me, where right now you have the ability to bring in a young guy, maybe and I'm not making this a race thing, but you could bring in a young Hispanic manager or a first-time Hispanic manager, maybe in a Sandy Alomar Jr. Try and galvanize a little bit of support from your fan base, a fan base who has largely said, bleep you, we're tired of being taken advantage of. We're tired of watching AAA and quadruple A baseball. We want to see an actual team. So the fact that, Mattingly is 272 and 364 as a Marlins skipper, and that is sure as hell not his fault. Yeah, sure, this team was so promising when he got there. Jose Fernandez, late great Jose Fernandez, rest in peace to him, of course. He was, he's the anchor of that staff. Giancarlo Stanton, a young Christian Yelich, Marcell Ozuna, Adeiny Hechavarria. You have Martin Prado. There were so many pieces. Carter Capps, the hopping 100+ mile an hour throwing right-hander. And then everything went to hell. So I understand that from this perspective, Mattingly had a great opportunity in front of him, and it crumbled due to no fault of his own. But this is going to be the third time in franchise history the Marlins are over 100 losses. They're already at 100 now. I don't understand how 636 games in, Mattingly is the longest serving skipper the Marlins have had. Tells you, number one, just how up and down this franchise is. At the end of the day, the Marlins go through skippers the way the Cleveland Browns have gone through quarterbacks over the last 20 years. Why they have decided to do this, it's news to me. Why Mattingly chooses to stay, at some point, I assume it just comes down to being comfortable, but I'm not really a fan. I'm really confused by the whole thing. And of course, I forget to mention JT Realmuto being on that team as well during the beginning of his tenure here. So this whole thing, it is just so odd. And the fact that beginning of this year, Ken Rosenthal of Fox Sports and MLB Network had reported that it was, quote, likely, close quote, the team would replace him at the end of the season, to go ahead and give him that 2-year extension. So Mattingly does get a chance to stay on, he is not going to be the savior for this team. I don't know if this is going to just be his idea of going ahead and closing out the final part of his managerial career. Maybe he's ready to go ahead and retire from baseball once he finishes here and he wants his last couple of years. I don't know what the thought process is other than he's going to get paid. He's going to have a couple more years down here in Florida. No state tax. Can't really complain about that. So they do go ahead and hold on to their skipper. Speaking of a Yankees great, we move into the New York Yankees who, holy crap, they made headlines across the baseball spectrum this entire week, and none of it was good. The only bit of goodness, the small sliver of potential happiness is that after Gleyber Torres left Friday's game against the Blue Jays, where he slipped and appeared to injure his right leg in the outfield, he had an MRI on the hamstring, which came back negative. Cool. Great news. So that is our positive. You bring back Giancarlo Stanton. Okay, we can go ahead and say that's pretty positive too. Fair enough. I can go ahead and give you that. Granted, he has not really been alongside of your ball club for the majority of the year. It's going to take him plenty of time to go ahead and get back in the swing of things. This is the least number of games he's played in his career, including when he got bashed in the face by a baseball. 11 games on the year, folks. 1 home run, 7 runs batted in. Hey, on the bright side, though, he's got 8 walks to 16 strikeouts. That's the best strikeout ratio of his career. We'll take it. Maybe. Ish. Not really. So at the end of this, Stanton is back. Okay, great. Get it back into the fold. Try and get things figured out. But then at the beginning of the week, rather, I see that Dellin Betances has a partial tear of his Achilles. What? This is where we're going, right? So the Red Cross might as well just set up an entire room at Yankee Stadium. How in the hell does this team just manage to keep finding injuries? It is by far the most mind-boggling thing that I have seen in baseball I have to say, I think, since I can remember watching baseball. To see a team who has had almost every single player on this ball club get hurt, go down, and yet still they're vying to be the best team in the major leagues. The only reason at the moment that they don't have the best record in baseball is because they've played 2 more games than the Houston Astros. The Houston Astros are 101-53. The Yankees are 101-55. So at the end of this, somehow, they have managed to stay not only relevant, but really damn good, and have been ravaged by the injury bug. So after the game, it was revealed again, a partial tear of his left Achilles tendon happens last Sunday in Toronto. I mean, at this point, surgery is likely going to happen. Does appear today, actually just a little bit ago, that Aaron Boone has told reporters surgery was not recommended. Betances will be in a walking boot at least for the next weeks, or next 4 weeks, the next month, I should say. Likely going to be done for the season after the playoffs. That is, I'm not going to say, I hate to say it's not a huge blow, but you had just gotten him back. Just gotten him back. He had not pitched. He pitched in 1 game. 2/3 of an inning. Struck out both hitters. Comes out of the game with a partially torn Achilles. This team cannot catch a break. And if they manage to actually win the World Series, I will tip my cap. I will pick my jaw up off of the floor. I will stand and applaud the fact that this team hurt, old. You have Jacoby Ellsbury, who is apparently still on the payroll but not on the field for years. How they managed to stay this good, to have been this consistent, is absolutely astounding, and it truly is so impressive. And it's where you're going to need guys like Zach Britton and Adam Ottavino, Tommy Kahnle to step up and help fill that gap in front of Chapman. That was always the 1-2 idea. Zach Britton has a chance to at least try and find something within himself. He comes in this year, a 1.97 ERA, 3-1 in 64 games. Can you say he looks back to the way that he did in Baltimore a couple of years ago? Maybe you can. Which, if that's the case, wow. How in the world the Yankees pulled that one out of their backside? No idea. And yet they still have him locked up over the next 3 seasons, through 20, 21, and 22, to the tune of $26 million, with a $14 million team option in 2022. He gets a bonus if he's traded, but when all this is said and done, if he keeps pitching this way, sure, he might want to be a closer, but you have the ability. Can you imagine, folks, for just a minute, if you had Dellin Betances, Zach Britton, Aroldis Chapman? Pick the order that you want them in. Shades of the Kansas City Royals winning the World Series back in 2015. You're going to have a bullpen just like that. That is a scary thought. Another scary thought, a scary fact, a scary thing to bring up and have to talk about, as Siri apparently decided to have a quick conversation with me. The top pitcher for the New York Yankees, in Domingo Germán, has been suspended, or rather placed on administrative leave, likely will be pending suspension, as he is under investigation under the joint domestic violence policy. There are very scant details as to what happened. The incident in question involved his girlfriend, took place sometime Monday or Tuesday morning after CC Sabathia's charity gala. According to Bob Klapisch of the New York Times, Germán allegedly slapped his girlfriend, and an official from the commissioner's office witnessed the incident. That is not really going to be helpful for his case. Now, some reports say it was not an MLB official who witnessed the incident, but at the end of the day, the Yankees have announced he will not be pitching anymore during the season or the postseason. If we step back for a minute and look at just the numbers, which is what we're going to do here for a second, and I am not at all, and we never will have thought about condoning any type of behavior like this. I will say, just from a statistical standpoint, somehow this young man, this 26-year-old, was 18-4 on the season. In 24 games, won 18 of them, a very high ERA, over 4, that's a key. In 143 innings pitched, he had allowed 30 home runs, 64 total earned runs, had a whip of 1.147. Again, you are the team leader in wins. You're not the ace of the staff, but you are the team leader in wins, averaging just under 10 strikeouts per 9 innings and just under a 4 strikeout per walk ratio. This is obviously going to be a painful gap for the Yankees as a ball club to not having someone who is leading them in wins. On the flip side, excellent job by Major League Baseball to get into this immediately. You have enough facts surrounding this to at least justify the placement on administrative leave under the policy. The Yankees get behind what was happening here. I don't have anything as far as a statement from the Yankees, but this is something that cannot be tolerated. It will be interesting to see what the final punishment that comes down is. But now you have to figure out, what are you going to do as far as your pitching staff in the playoffs? It was already announced that CC Sabathia would be moving to the bullpen for the playoffs. He has pitched out of the bullpen once in his 19-year career. That is one of those moments that makes you go, okay, so we're going to try something brand new that we clearly have not done in, I don't think it's happened since he has been a member of the Yankees. So the hope now has to be, when you have as your depth chart to begin the year, Tanaka, Paxton, Happ, Severino, Montgomery, and you had Sabathia, that is going to be the key. Severino just now coming back. How much can you trust him? And we have seen how tentative it can be with him in the lineup during the postseason. He can be great, and he can get absolutely obliterated. Which Severino do we get? The fact that we're going to put Tanaka in there as our likely main guy of this pitching staff. I mean, we've talked about it. Chris and I have talked about it numerous times. Which Tanaka do we get? This year we've got an all-star, his first all-star appearance since 2014, who's 11-8 with a 4.47 ERA. Almost a 4.5 ERA, guys. That's crazy. A whip of 1.23, 3.7 strikeouts to walk ratio, giving up almost 1.5 homers per 9 innings and 2 walks per 9. And this is the guy that we are, at least at the moment, having listed as the number one person on our depth chart. No, at least back it away. Now you have James Paxton in there. Of course, big pickup, the big maple leaf picked up from Seattle. He's 14-6 on the year, an ERA just under 4 at 3.8, but a 1.3 whip. Okay, so that gives us two guys that high ERAs, whips that are not really the kind of thing you want to see. And now with Betances out, you're going to have to rely on that bullpen just a little bit more. And then we look at J. Happ. And J. Happ has been all over the place. This year, he's 12-8 with an ERA of 5 with a whip of 1.3. So the depth here is still concerning. And that has to be the biggest concern. Yes, this segment is about Domingo Germán. And yes, MLB should do as they tend to always do that we have seen, the utmost to find out exactly what happened. And if what is alleged is what happened, or God forbid it was worse, he should be punished to the full extent of the law in New York, as well as under the Major League Baseball and MLBPA joint domestic violence policy. But if we step back from just what Germán did, this is a moment where you can see how these kind of actions affect people just outside of you. We always say there are ripple effects in everything that happens in life. The ripple effect is how it's going to affect the Yankees, and we want to bring it back to the baseball idea of things. We get tired of talking about these guys doing this kind of horrific junk. So I do not mean at all to glean over it. I am not trying to disrespect what happened. But at the end of the day, I do not want to sit here and give this pitcher the majority of the time on this show to tell you how absolutely despicable his actions are. And I certainly hope that in the time that you have listened to this show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network, that you know that Chris and I absolutely abhor what he is alleged to have done. with my soapbox rant soliloquy over, let's go ahead and step back, take a deep breath. Okay, we'll let it out. Let's take a look at the standings. And then, since Chris isn't here and he can't argue with me, I'm going to give you who I think is going to be our rookies of the year in both the National and American League. Now, I'm going to go for the most part that if you're watching baseball, you probably have a pretty damn good idea of who is going to be the rookie of the year in the National League. And if you don't, okay, we'll get there in just a minute. But as we go through our standings, we are just about chalk. And for the most part, we are pretty much safe to say that everything is figured out at this point. All right. The Yankees are on top by 9 games. They have clinched a playoff berth. The only possible way is if they go on a 9-game losing streak and we see a big straight out winning streak by the Rays. Not going to happen. Okay, correction. I'm sorry. It's the Astros who have clinched a playoff berth. The division has been clinched by the Yankees. Got my X and my Y mixed up. The Yankees have clinched. They're 101 and 55, 9 games up. They've clinched the East. We pretty much expected that. Okay, the Tampa Bay Rays eliminated the Boston Red Sox from contention the other night. The Rays still in contention for the wild card spot. They are tied with the Cleveland Indians for spot number 2. And we have the Oakland A's right now sitting on top of that wild card. The Red Sox, the Blue Jays, and the Orioles, all disappointing seasons. Of course, Dave Dombrowski, the GM of the Red Sox, was fired just about a week and a half ago. That was and we'll take a moment here in just a second to discuss that, because that one, I get it, and I understand that at the end of the day here, okay, you had a massively disappointing season, but it was the idea as front office exec Frank Wren, Eddie Bain, one of the scouts, also has been relieved of their duties inside the Red Sox organization. But I was surprised. I get that you have expectations of your ball club, but the fact that you go from winning a World Series to this year, things just not looking right, and you should at least break 500. Now, yes, did you underachieve from last year? Absolutely. There is no question that you underachieved. But I'm still surprised that Dombrowski was let go so unceremoniously without at least another year to try and get it back on track. We have not seen the same kind of tumultuous changeover from teams like the Giants, who would win a World Series, miss for 3 out of 5 years. But the fact that the Red Sox still finishing third, and like I said, should finish over 500, just one of those ones that it just kind of caught me at a really odd spot. In the American League Central, the Minnesota Twins are 95 and 59, 4-game lead over the Indians. That is going to be really the only race to watch, and I think we could say likely, for the most part, it should go to the Twinks. Rocco Baldelli really does have a legitimate chance to win Manager of the Year. I'm not sure I would want to, because the last guy that did that was Paul Molitor, and he got fired the next year. But the Indians and the Twins do not play each other the rest of the season. So it is going to be on each of these teams to go ahead and win out. The Indians finish up a series with the Phillies, and they are right now on a pretty decent run. They beat the Twins on the last Sunday, the 15th, and then also lost a doubleheader, the 14th, 2-0 and 9-5. But since that doubleheader loss, you're looking at a team who has rattled off 5 straight wins and are currently playing the Phillies now and then have the Phillies again tomorrow. They have the White Sox and the Nationals. The Nationals, a team I am hanging my hat on right now because the rest of my predictions early on in the season did not quite go how I expected them to. So that is the one thing that I can go ahead and say. They didn't win the division, but damn it, I at least have them in the playoffs, and that looks like I may get paid off on that one. But the Twinks should be able to close out this season and take home the AL Central crown. The Indians, 4 games back, still in a tight race for the wild card. The White Sox, the Royals, and the Tigers shouldn't have played this year, but they did. In the West, hard to believe that still 8 games back, the A's still have a chance. Not much, very slim. It's a 1 game, and they're done. So the Astros have to lose out. The A's have to win out. We would likely get a 1-game playoff to decide who wins the division and who wins the wild card. What are the chances of that? Well, we had it happen last year. So it's not like it's the furthest thing from memory. At the end of this, the Astros are one of what should be 3 100-win teams on the year. Maybe one of 4 if the Atlanta Braves manage to go on a crazy run. Hell, you could even have the Twins go on a run, as the Twins have 95 wins, as do the Atlanta Braves. That would be an interesting year if we somehow manage to have 5 out of 6 teams with 100 wins. I think that would be the first time in baseball history that had happened. That'll be a fun show next week if that ends up being the case. But the Astros should be able to go ahead and win out. They have 101 wins. All it's going to take is 1 win. They're playing the Angels. I don't foresee this being a problem. The A's, of course, 2 games up on the wild card, and then the Rangers, the Angels, and the Mariners round out. And the Mariners, after having a great start to the year, went ahead and fell to the bottom of that division again, 65 and 89. Into the East, I can't believe I get to say it. I know this is one of the few moments I get to say something that makes my dad just feel so good, and that is the Atlanta Braves have won the NL East, 95 and 69.5 game lead over the Nationals, and they are eliminated from contention for the division pennant. Still, you have the possibility here, 7 more games. If the Braves can go 5-2, they will crack the 100-win mark. Now, they are a team who has been playing 500 baseball in their last 10 games, but they are facing the Giants over the next, finishing off this weekend series. That should be one that they at least have a chance to possibly close out the series over the weekend and pick up a couple of wins. Then you have the Royals and the Mets. The Mets might play a little bit of spoiler, but that's about the only one. I think there's a possibility here for sure. The Mets 80 and 73, they should break 500 this year. And at the end of the day, Mickey Callaway didn't do a terrible job after some of the craziness that occurred in New York. And I think he may be kind of looking in the same way that Davey Martinez was, as he has his Mets 4 games right now, or at 84 wins, 2 games above 500, 84 and 68. So there's certainly a possibility. It's a possibility here, I mean, we'll see what happens. I think I think Callaway should be okay. The Phillies, a massive disappointment. 5 games out of the wild card. They are 78 and 74, and they are looking right now at the possibility they might finish sub 500 and 4th in the East. And Gabe Kapler should feel a very hot seat under his rear end. That is not a good look for him. And I think that, as we talked about, Dave Martinez, and I am not saying that making the playoffs this year gets him off the hot seat, but he now will have a seatmate in the East in Gabe Kapler. In the Central, we are still playing. The Cardinals have a 3-game lead over the Brewers, a 5-game lead over the Cubs. The Cubs are on the outside looking in. The good question is going to be, and I think there's a good possibility here, is Joe Madden done in Chicago? And I think the answer to that may be yes. Winning one World Series and disappointing the last couple of years after that. It's going to be a very hard time to keep him in. It almost feels as though he's lost a little bit of the pulse of that team. Maybe he is the guy who's being just a bit too nice. I've always liked his managerial style, but I remember Terry Francona talking to us a couple of years ago, said on the show that the key for him is knowing his players and knowing when to be a hard ass, if you will, and when to go ahead and let them do their job. And I wonder if Joe Maddon has begun to lose a little bit of the feel for that ball club. The Reds, 10 games under 500, they're 72 and 82. 15 games back, they are done, as are the Pirates. In the West, the Dodgers have it all wrapped up. They are 20 games above the Diamondbacks, which is dumb. Diamondbacks should be able to finish over 500. The Giants in third place. The Padres and the Rockies rounded out. The Dodgers, 99 wins. They will crack triple digits. So the possibility still, the Braves and the Twins could go on a run. The Twins are 6-4 in their last 10. They could go ahead and run it off. To have 4 or 5 teams, that would really, really be an enjoyable thing to discuss. All right, so let's go ahead and get into, and we'll wrap the show up for you guys. Let's go ahead and get into Rookie of the Year, because we want to have a little bit of fun with it, all right? I mean, at the end of the day, is there really any doubt that Pete Alonso wins Rookie of the Year for the New York Mets? I'll wait. But the guy has 50 dingers. And I get it. And Chris was here. He would say, it's not a home run derby. No, you're right. It's not a home run derby contest. But you have 150 hits in your first year. I mean, we can remember when Ichiro had 200 hits in his first year. But 150 hits, 115 RBIs, 50 home runs, 29 doubles, 2 triples, 81 out of 149 total hits are extra base hits. That is huge. 69 walks on the year, 166 strikeouts. Okay, he's going to be a free swinger. I don't give a hoot. Really don't care. He's hitting 266. He's slashing 366, 593. Got an OPS just under 1 at .959. Give the guy the trophy. I mean, end of the day, it is what it is. He was just that damn good. And yes, he had the possibility to get pushed by a Fernando Tatis Jr. And had Tatis stayed healthy, that might have happened. Why not? We certainly saw the possibility that it was there. But the injury is going to go ahead and push him out of that, to me. He hit 317. That was great. But he hit 317 in 84 games. Now, had you been able to go ahead and keep hitting over 300, and you were on pace to have 42 home runs in 162 games, and to have an OPS of 969, and your slash numbers of 379 and 590 be almost identical, then sure. Granted, he would have had 212 strikeouts, was the expected average. He had 30 walks and 110 Ks, but 22 dingers, 53 RBI. So out of 106 hits, since we went ahead and played the game just a minute ago, would have had 22 homers, 6 triples, that's 28 extra base hits, plus the 13 doubles, that'd be 41. So 41 out of 106 total hits for extra bases. At the end of the day, obviously a much bigger power guy. Both of these guys want to be power guys, but we're seeing that contact is still a big thing for Tatis. A 317 hitter, a 379 on base percentage. The key for me, looking at this whole thing, is even with the 266 average, it's the 69 walks, the 366 on base, 100 points higher. Just getting on base, that to me is a key for Pete Alonso. That is why I give him my nod for National League Rookie of the Year. Now, in the American League, we still have a debate. I am on the toss-up here between Brandon Lowe of the Tampa Bay Rays and Vlad Guerrero Jr. of the Toronto Blue Jays. The tough thing here for Vlad, he had the injuries. 118 games played, compared to actually, well, and you're still looking now at Lowe. I'm sorry, as I miss on this, Lowe picking up the injuries as well. So really, at the end of this, coming into it, Lowe was looking really, really good. Ends up picking up the injury with the shin contusion, and that pretty much cost him the rest of his season now. So his season is done as of a couple of days ago. And man, looking at this, as far as the numbers go, I think you're gonna have a hard time really getting behind this young kid. And Vlad, he's played more games, almost 50 more games. Still has a few more to go. He's got 15 home runs, 2 triples, 25 doubles. Again, not a power guy. That's okay. The beauty of baseball really is just knowing what your job is. Doing your job, knowing what your skill set is, and then playing to the best ability of that skill set. 42 out of 122 extra base hits. I'll still take it. The key to me right now is the 46 walks to 85 strikeouts, a good ratio. A 276 batting average, OPS of 789. For the most part, yeah, I think that the overall AL rookie look was a little bit less bombastic. Of course, you picked up, Bo Bichette came up at the tail end of the season, so he's not going to have gotten a full. Right now in 46 games, he's hitting 311, on base of 358, a slugging 571, 11 homers, and 18 doubles. That's 29 extra base hits out of 61 total. What I think you may end up seeing next year, he should still be eligible. Bo Bichette should be a guy who we can expect to look for as a Rookie of the Year candidate in 2020. I'm going to go ahead and give my nod, I think today, to Vlad Guerrero Jr. So Pete Alonso, Vlad Jr., and you know what that means next week. That means we are going to have finished the season, and we're going to give you our MVP winners. Chris should be back. If not, hey, you just get me again. And hopefully, that's not the worst thing in the world. Be sure to go ahead and give me a follow on Twitter at 321SCGram. Yep, change the handle. On top of this, also working with 321 Sportscast has been a blast. And yes, you'll see me sharing some of that stuff onto our Facebook page, Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham. At the end of the day, guys, I'm still trying to go ahead and build the brand that I'm trying to create as a broadcaster and being on this podcast. I absolutely love it, and something I want to continue to do as I hopefully continue to be able to grow in this business. So having a chance to have been on with Spectrum TV, I'm thoroughly enjoying that. I am the play-by-play voice for Florida Tech volleyball, so that was a great honor to be out there this past Tuesday for my first college volleyball game as a broadcaster for them, and of course for everything we do here at 321 Sportscast in Florida. So please, I understand that you probably aren't from here, but go ahead and give us a shot. It's still enjoyable to watch a little bit of some youth stuff, some high school stuff. We broadcast bowling, and it's actually a blast to do it, and it's fun to watch. Get a ton of views. So if you can, give us a like also. 321 Sportscast on Facebook, on Twitter, and follow me at 321SCGram on Twitter as well. Guys, thanks for hanging out with me. It's always a blast to be with you. Looking forward to next week as the season ends. Playoff baseball is here. What can the Yankees actually do out of this entire crazy injury-riddled season they have had? We are only 8 games away from finding out. For all of us at the Grueling Truth Sports Network, guys, thanks for hanging out with me. Catch you next week on Out of Left Field.